Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington, joined by my fantastic co-hosts Dayton Reimer and Paul Quinney. How you guys doing today?
Hey, great, Jacob. How are you?
Doing good, thank you.
Not getting blown away by those hurricane gales out there on the East Coast?
Not yet, but power's been flickering, so hopefully we can make it through this episode. Um, so we have a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of losses in Ottawa lately. They're 3-7 in their past 10. Things are not going fantastic, and now trade talks are kind of front and center. We're about a month and a half from the trade deadline. Um, there's a lot of things going on, and nobody really has any answers for Ottawa right now. So we're just kind of going to jump right into things. The latest reports are saying that Steve Staios is very aggressive on the trade front and that he's looking for veteran pros. Now, I hope he doesn't mean Derek Stepan, Eric Goodbranson, Braden Coburn. I hope that's not what he means. So we're going to kind of talk about what that means. So Elliot Friedman kind of gave us the most information and said that he thinks of those veteran pros as like Winnipeg has with Alex Iafallo, Vladislav Nemesnikov, Nino Niederreiter, Brendan Dillon, all those kind of guys. So those are four players that I would be all over. Winnipeg's not selling. Brendan Dillon is a UFA at the end of the year. He's the only one I could imagine that they're willing to give up. But even at that point, they're in it this year. Is there anybody that comes to mind to either of you when you think of these veteran pros and that kind of comparison to those players? We'll start with you on this one, Paul.
Well, I'm just scratching my head at everything that's coming out of Ottawa. Okay, you're going to go out and get pros and character players. I don't know where the heck they are. They're not easy to come by, and those that on the market are going to come at a big price tag. And so I'm having trouble trying to reconcile the big price tag that you're going to have to pay to get someone decent. And then Stay saying, yeah, but we're not touching the core. I mean, any general manager he's having a discussion with is going to say, hey, how many players in that core are you prepared to give up?
Yep.
So I'm just scratching my head at the whole thing. Like you say, Jacob, I think they're so far up the creek without a paddle, they don't know what to do in this situation. It's really a salvage operation for the Senators. It's a failed rebuild. I think they know that. And it's just going to be really tough to get that type of character player to get to Ottawa. A lot of players have Ottawa on their no trade list.
Yep.
So that's a problem. And I guess so long-winded answer to your very short question. Am I aware of anybody or who do I think they might be looking at? Chris Tanev and Noah Hannafin out in Calgary. Those are the only two that come to mind. They're both RFAs at the end of the or UFAs at the end of the season, and I guess affordable. I think Tanev's about 4.5 million, but he's 34, a little long in the tooth. Hannafin's almost 5 million, but he's 26, so a little more attractive.
Yeah, I mean those would be two fantastic people for Ottawa to pick up. Only issue is that they're UFAs, so I think there would have to be an extension if Ottawa is looking for a trade. I don't think they're looking for somebody just for this year.
Yeah, yeah, they'll look for some time in the contract, but it's going to be tough to get a quality player to come to Ottawa. I mean, we've seen this movie before, right? That's the way they sold Tarasenko and Giroux. Oh, come to Ottawa. You won't believe the exciting things we're doing here. We're going to be a cup contender. We're on the cusp.
Yeah,
And well, that turned out to be a bill of goods, didn't it?
yeah. Dayton, anybody that kind of pops into mind for you?
Well, the guys you mentioned from Winnipeg were not the top guys, right? Iafallo, Nemestikov. I've already forgotten the list that you provided. But
Brendan Dillon and
yeah,
just those middle six, middle pairing guys.
middle six or even bottom six guys,
Yep.
right? Those are depth of your lineup players. Now, I think I would contrast Paul here a little bit in saying those guys are all over the place. You just kind of have to know where to look.
Yeah.
And not a lot of guys pop into my mind because there is a lot of those seasoned vets. Now, of course, sometimes you go out and you get a Derek Stepan and an Eric Goodbranson, and it doesn't work so well. But I think the reason they didn't work so well is because those were bottom of the lineup players asked to play at the top of the lineup, which is always a mistake. Don't do that to people. That's a recipe for just losing. And the Senators have a really good recipe for losing right now. So go out and get some of those really skilled depth guys who are good at playing depth. I wrote a piece a while ago focusing on some players that they should focus on defense. And one guy I really liked was P.O. Joseph in Pittsburgh. Maybe not quite a seasoned pro that Staios is looking for, but he's got experience. First round pick, former 20. Well, I'm not even going to say because I can't remember exactly. I want to say 2017. I said it anyways. It's around there. But he's not getting time in Pittsburgh, or at least wasn't when I was writing the piece. And would want to come to Ottawa. Why wouldn't he want to play with his brother? That's somebody you could target and somebody who has the talent. And he's also a good depth piece. He's got a lot of strong defensive aspects to him, and I think would probably look pretty good against, or not against, beside Jacob Bernard Docker.
Yep. And you can't get a high sticking penalty against somebody on your own team. So that's a win-win for both Josephs.
There you go.
I agree. And the term veteran pro is very vague and very unspecific. And they could be looking at anybody. I do think that they are looking for a right-handed defenseman and bottom six players. I don't think they're really looking to make a big shakeup in the top six. Maybe you want to move one guy down to the third line, add some depth and whatever it might be. I'm going to throw a couple names at you, and I just want you to say yay or nay if you'd be interested in acquiring them, regardless of the price. Like, these guys are all going to cost different prices. We're not going to hypothesize 20 different mock trades here. But Anthony Duclair.
Nay.
Nay. Paul?
Yeah. I think he's a solid. I mean, he'd add some grit, and that's what the Senators need. Sure, I wouldn't ignore that possibility. No, not at all.
For me, that's a yay. I'd like to add him to the middle six if that's somewhere they're looking. Let's see. Philadelphia just acquired Jamie Drysdale. That whole situation is a conversation for another day, but all I can say is wow. Am I ever glad that we took Jake Sanderson over Jamie Drysdale? I was mad at the time, admittedly. But now they have a little bit of a surplus of defensemen. So how about Sean Walker, right-handed defenseman?
Ooh, I like that one. He's one that I've been keeping an eye on for most of the season here, and his metrics are really intriguing.
Yeah, he's somebody that. So in the offseason, I wrote a lot about him and Matt Roy in LA, and I was like, I really want Ottawa to target one of these guys. And now it looks like Sean Walker might be expendable to Philadelphia. So for me, it's a definite yay. What about you, Paul?
Well, on Walker, who's coming back, or who's leaving Ottawa, in your view?
Brandstrom, Kubalik, Tarasenko.
Yeah. Those were on my list of guys you could move, but they'd be playoff rentals, I guess, right?
They could be, yeah, but they could also be flipped to Philadelphia. Philadelphia can then flip them if they're not in a playoff spot, because right now they're in a playoff spot and they look like they're not slowing down. So maybe they are looking to make an impact in the playoffs and add some scoring.
Yeah, so it's unlikely they give back coming back the other way to Ottawa, or I mean, they're not going to be giving up roster players, right? They're going to need those for the playoff run. So then the question becomes, okay, how interested is Ottawa in picks and prospects?
Yeah, and yeah, there could be a real hockey trade there, and like I said, they have some extra defensemen, whether it's going to be Rasmus Ristolainen, who that name turns a lot of people off, but he's been much better this year than even last year. He's been fantastic in Philadelphia. I got two more names for you.
Can I
Go
pop in
ahead.
for Philadelphia there? Have you guys
Yeah.
seen the rumor that they were maybe looking into Carter Hart?
I saw that mock trade. I don't believe any of it.
No, it's wild, but I thought it was from a semi-reputable source that was at least offered or talked about.
See, I didn't see the actual source, and just to see that, I don't believe that in the slightest, and therefore I didn't even think twice to check if it was a real source.
That's fair. It was wild. To me, it struck me as guys who might have been offered as part of a package, but
Yeah.
not the whole package.
For those who didn't see, it was, and you might have to fill in the holes here, Dayton, but it was Jonas Corposalo, Drake Batherson, Eric Brandstrom, and a second round pick or a
I think
fourth round
Shane
pick.
Pinto was a part of that as well.
And Shane Pinto
Yeah.
for Carter Hart. Who else was it?
I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah,
Carter
like
Hart and a
it
pick.
was ridiculous. And
Super
so
ridiculous if that's a straight up trade. And if that was offered and Philly didn't take it, then I think Philly needs a new GM because that's insane.
Yeah.
You if that's an offer, you take it and run, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder if they are looking at maybe a goalie like Carter Hart, and I would also be skeptical and maybe more of a nay because it's not going to fix any of the problems. You're just going to get Carter Hart with really bad numbers.
Yeah. You're just gonna have a good name in your crease.
Yep.
Right. Like it's I got two.
Corpusalo's going to Edmonton or Columbus Blue Jackets and come back the other ways. Jack Campbell or Elvis Miralainen.
No, thank you.
Well,
I will stick with Corpusalo over either of those two. I believe in Corpusalo. I don't believe in the other two. I got three more names for you. Two of them I'm going to bunch together. So first, I'm going to go with Jordan Martinook out of Carolina.
Oh, that's a good depth guy. I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring him in.
He's been struggling a little bit in Carolina this year, and Carolina's had their own struggles. So it's hard to really point fingers as to who or what is the problem. But if Ottawa can get on him, he's not going to cost much. Jesper Fast is going to be coming out of his injury very soon, and I don't know exactly what their forward group looks like. I know they've been calling up some young guys like Ponomarev. But yeah, I don't know how available he is. I saw some people on Kane's Twitter talking about like, yeah, he's great. Come get him. But yeah, he's somebody I'd be all over too. What do you think, Paul?
yeah, I'd be interested in him. Sure, why not? I mean, what do you got to lose at this point?
Right.
He's like an upgrade of Parker Kelly, right? You're getting a tough, gritty guy who can contribute a bit more points. He's had some great seasons in the past. This one's not it.
Yeah.
But who says he can't find that if he's put into a third line role where he can kind of play more of his style?
Yeah. And he's somebody that on Carolina, he can play on that third and fourth line and do fine. But then, like, he can do a 7-game stretch on the top line and fit in just fine if there's an injury or something. Or
yeah, he's got skill for sure.
Yeah. So he's somebody I would really like to focus on. And then Ottawa has Steve Staios, Ryan Bonus, and who else? Somebody else. Oh, Dave Poulin. They're all at the Tampa Bay LA game tonight in Tampa Bay, which is very interesting. Some people are saying that they were there for a scouting meeting anyway, so they all decided to go to the local game. But you got to think that there's a reason that your three top guys in the organization are going to watch a game between two teams. I'm going to throw out the names Blake Lizotte and Carl Grundstrom.
Those ones I'm a little less interested in. Lizotte, maybe. Grundstrom, he just hasn't found it. He was a highly rated prospect, or at least decently rated.
Yep.
But just hasn't really clicked in the NHL. And maybe it's coming. Maybe it's in Ottawa. Who knows? It was for a lot of guys like Duclair and Dzingel and some of those others. But I don't know. I think that one's riskier. And if you're looking for those bottom of the lineup guys, Lizotte, maybe. Grundstrom, I'll pass.
Okay. Paul, do either of those names bring anything to mind?
Doesn't do a lot for me.
Yeah.
I agree with Dayton, maybe Lazat, but
Yeah.
doesn't jump out.
Well, and it's worth noting, right now, LA needs to clear just over $1 million to activate Victor Arvidsson. So they are going to be looking to move out some money. Um, both of the players are bottom six guys. Like, I'm not saying bring these guys in to solve the top six scoring issues. But it is also worth mentioning that Blake Lizotte has, as of tonight, passed Pierre-Luc Dubois on the center depth chart. Pierre-Luc Dubois is the fourth line center in LA. So interesting. Maybe they're putting on a showcase because they know Ottawa has guys in the building. But both of them are 25-point fourth liners, third liners on a good day. But they're guys that I think of when I think of those veteran pros that can come in and really help the lineup. I'll be honest, if it was Parker Kelly and Mark Kastelik or Carl Grundstrom and Blake Lizotte, I'm taking LA's guys.
Yeah, I don't think it's a massive upgrade for what you'd have to pay to get him. Right? You said Lazotte's climbing the depth chart. Great. That means he's more expensive.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to pay more to get him. So what are you paying? Kubalik? You're exchanging the same thing.
Yeah.
So like, okay, maybe you get a couple of bucks in space, which is worth a lot for the Senators, but I don't know. To me, those guys are more expensive than what they would actually be worth on Ottawa. And Ottawa needs to find some of those cheaper guys who are like high reward type of players.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't disagree with you on any of those.
I'm glad about that.
It's just a very fine line between what side you sit on. Like, there's not a huge argument either way.
Yeah.
It's almost like a little bit of a moot point. Like, going to be more of a change of scenery rather than a big upgrade. And so just that change of culture is more so what I'm looking at. And players like that is who I think will do best in Ottawa right now. Because, like I said, they don't need to go get. I don't even like. This will actually transition us well into the next point. So Frank Saravalli posted the Daily Faceoff trade bait board, and number 4 on the list was Trevor Zegras. Ottawa doesn't need to go get Trevor Zegras, right? Like, they don't need that top 6 guy. They have the personnel there. They just need to fix whatever the problem is. And maybe it is a change of scenery for some people. Maybe it is Drake Batherson for a Troy Terry type of player. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. Just to change some faces around. But that's not really what Ottawa needs right now. But speaking of that list, number 10, did either of you see who is number 10 on the list?
Tell us.
Paul? Jacob Chychrun.
No kidding. Wow.
Acquired 10 months ago. Frank Saravalli has him number 10 on the trade bait board. And when he was talking about, let me pull up the quote real quick. When he was talking about why he's there, he said multiple teams have inquired about Chychrun, acquired from Arizona just 10 months ago, and they have not been told that he's unavailable. That's as far as he really got into things, but that is very telling, right? So we heard that Staios isn't shopping the young core. Does that mean that and now he's not being actively shopped. That's not what I'm saying, but he's telling teams that he's not unavailable, right? So Ottawa could really benefit. Speaking of the Winnipeg conversation we started with, from a Pierre-Luc Dubois type trade, right? Now, good luck hitting a home run that hard. Even the day the trade was made, I said Winnipeg got the best player in the deal and Gabe Vilardi, and then Iafallo Kupari in the second round pick. So good luck beating that. But a trade like that, you're getting 3 depth guys who are looked at as less good than Chychrun or Dubois. Would you want to make a deal like that? Or are you looking at a deal like trading somebody for picks and prospects? Are you looking to trade Claude Giroux to a winning team for a 22-year-old who hasn't really broken out yet, but you definitely see it's going to come? Like, what kind of trade are you looking for Ottawa to make right now? I'll start with you, Dayton.
So if Ottawa is kind of what we've talked about before, Paul mentioned it, we mentioned it last week. If the rebuild is a failure, then yeah, load up on the picks and like sell the core, get rid of everybody, like admit defeat.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like management is wanting to go that way, though. It seems like they're confident in this core, and they should be. It's a good core, maybe not the best, but at least top half, if not top quarter of the
Yeah.
teams. Like you've got a really strong young group there
Yeah.
that have picked up a lot of bad habits. So I think if you are serious about turning this team into a competitive playoff winning team, one of them has to go. So you need to make a Pierre-Luc Dubois type of trade.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's not the core, but to me, the core is always just three guys: Tkachuk, Stützle, and Sanderson. That's it. Everyone else is either close to the core or not the core. I don't really want to see Chychrun traded. I think he's been the best or the second best defenseman on the team this year. But saying that he isn't not unavailable, right? Being kind of vague about it. That's what they should be doing, right? Get those trade offers. Listen to what people are offering. Maybe someone's gonna way overpay, and we're gonna look back in that trade and it's like, really? That's what you paid for Chychrun? Great, take it. I would look more at like maybe a Shabbat, not having a great season. He seems to have kind of hit a wall in Ottawa here. Give him a nice change of scenery, just like the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Maybe Batherson. He's having a good season. Nothing against him. He can get you quite a return, I think. He's young. He's got a good contract. He can score goals. People like that. Or maybe even Josh Norris.
Yeah.
You got Shane Pinto coming up. Shane Pinto looks great. Ridley Gregg looks great. I think your center's okay. And Norris, I mean, he's good. He's doing fine. He's not blowing you out of the water, though, right? He's a 60-point guy.
Yeah.
You can get a 60-point guy. It's not impossible to find, and I wouldn't say it's even really that hard. You just got to pay for one.
Yep. Paul, what kind of deal would you like to see in Ottawa? Where do you want to see the next big splash send this team?
I know there's going to be a lot of pressure on Staios to do something at the trade deadline. I don't think he needs to. It's probably in the off season where I think he could make a few blockbuster trades, maybe too strong a word for it, but significant trades. I mean, the problem with the trade deadline is you've only got really Giroux, Tarasenko, Kubalik, maybe Korpisalo that you can move. And, for a playoff contender, they're not going to be sending a roster players. I don't think it's going to be picks and prospects. And I think Ottawa's past that point. So I'd cool my heels and, if something comes up where you can move somebody at the trade deadline that makes sense, okay. But I'd be looking at the off season. Then, the thing is, at the end of the season, there's going to be a lot of cap space that's freed up. And so bide your time, do your homework, talk to a lot of people, and something's going to emerge. You got to be in the right place at the right time with the right cash. So that's the way I'd position myself if I were Staios.
Yeah, and so we're talking about Chychrun not being unavailable, so available for trade for the right price. Everything is for sale for the right price. If you're offering me Connor McDavid for Brady Tkachuk or Jake Sanderson, 100% I'm taking that. They're for sale for the right price. But you look at the defense and you have to say, why is Ottawa even thinking about trading a defenseman? Their defense is terrible. Well, they have the logjam of left-handed defensemen with the three-headed monster, really, with Shabbat, Sanderson, and Chychrun. Thomas Chabot so Chychrun is available, not unavailable. Thomas Chabot has a no trade clause kicking in July 1st, and you're not moving Sanderson. That's out of the question. Artem Zub takes a lot of untimely penalties that seems to cost the team a lot of momentum. That's as far as I'm going to go with that because I don't want to get flamed on the internet. There are a lot of defensemen that are expendable in Ottawa. one of them, among all of them, one of them can be expendable. You can get rid of one of them. Now, Artem Zub is the best right-handed defenseman. You don't want to trade your best right-handed defenseman, which is one of your weakest positions on the team. Thomas Chabot, he's the longest tenured player. He was in the running for the captain alongside Brady Tkachuk. You don't want to trade him. You just acquired Chikrin for the 7th overall pick and two second-round picks. You don't want to get rid of him. You got to do something, and something's going to hurt. Somebody's going to get their feelings hurt. Somebody's attached to this player. I don't know what you do, but you got to do something. You got to make a change. And right now, trading one of your defensemen might be the smartest idea, even though some people might call you crazy for even thinking it. That might be what they have to do.
Yeah, no, I think this team has kind of played nice for a bit too long.
Yeah.
They've really sort of cushioned their young guys to, and this this honestly might be a bit of a hot take. I don't know the temperature around the team, at least for some of the fans around this, but it does seem like they've been cushioned and they've been sort of like, okay, you can take it easy. The winning, it'll come, right? This season, it's not important. The next season, it's not important. The next season, it's not important. And now you have a team that can't win, even if it wants to.
Yeah.
So somebody has to go, and getting that new management group in, and mostly guys who have zero connection to the team, that's, I think, a good thing. And ones that are going to make tough choices, but not the ones who made, the nice choices in the beginning. I don't think Pierre Dorion was ever going to be the one to take this team into a championship, even after some of his greatest hits, simply because he was too nice, right? He wanted his young guys, he wanted his picks, his, team to stay together. And every championship team has big guys that they acquired with a trade or a free agent signing, right? You have to make room to win. You have to make those tough choices, and Ottawa has to do it. And if they don't, they won't get there.
Just to your point about Dorion, is there any other reason that Eric Brandstrom is making $2 million on the Senators' blue line other than it being his proudest day as a general manager? Like,
that's that's a tough one. I like him. I like Eric Brandstrom.
I do too. But
He's
what has he
not
proved?
What they acquired?
What has he done to prove that he deserves to be the third line or third pairing left defenseman making $2 million? Not much.
He should have been a 40-point guy when they acquired him.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they were setting him up to be. And he is now a 15, 20-point defenseman who's on the defensive side, but also doesn't really have the size to be on the defensive side. He's kind of a Chris Russell build.
Yeah.
Which is great, right? Everyone likes a Chris Russell, I assume. Yeah. I like him. Yeah. I know he had a lot of critics later in his career. But strong defensive-minded player who could chip in a few points. At this point, he's not a $2 million player. I don't think he ever should have been a $2 million player, but they wanted to keep him. They needed to keep him. Otherwise, he was gone. And so they gave him more than they should have. And I think a lot of guys were given more than they should have because it was too nice, right? Everyone's being really nice. Okay, you can stay in Ottawa. Oh, you'll take a team-friendly deal, right? It's not really that team-friendly because you're really young and you haven't earned it yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should go on.
No, I agree, Dayton. I mean, I was thinking today, some of the contracts that Dorion signed, in hindsight, and I admit it's 2020, you just wonder what the hell was he thinking at the time? I mean, it makes me question everything he's brought on board. Corpusalo, at a press conference, I remember his buttons were bursting with pride. We've got Corpusalo. He's going to solve the goaltending problem in Ottawa. Not. And then Chabot, $8 million for 8 years, I think it is. Is that what he is? Yeah. I don't know where that came from. Sure, he was a high.
Like you said, hindsight is 2020. There's nothing wrong with the Chabot deal the day it was handed out. That was one of the biggest days in the rebuild because that was somebody finally committing to this team.
But for every Chabot, there's a Colin White.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
Or a Josh Norris. He's
Yeah,
a
that one
six
doesn't look good.
player.
But you wonder, they've been losing so long, and a lot of their top players, some of these kids, they've been in Ottawa 6 or 7 years, right? Haven't had a whiff of a playoff series, and I don't know when they're going to get a whiff of it, frankly, the way things are going for this team. So I wonder with all these no trade clauses that are going to kick in, like Jacob, you mentioned Shabbat's. I don't know. Maybe does he really want to stay here? I don't know.
I don't know. And
What do you?
well, you talk about how they're not even close to winning. I don't know how this team that on paper objectively got better since last year, how they were 6 points out of a playoff spot last year. Right now, in on January 9th, if Ottawa played and won 5 games tonight, they would be tied with the Buffalo Sabres for second last in the East in points.
Well, to pump my upcoming piece, I'm doing a Jacques Martin report card, and things don't look good for Jacques. I just looked at it statistically. Like, set aside all the hype, how they've got a different attitude now and their compete levels harder. That's just
Yep.
nonsense. It's all moral victories. Just look at the stats, and if you do that, you will see that they're worse under Jacques Martin than they were under DJ Smith. So they've taken a step back. And for all the fans that were screaming "Fire DJ," well, be careful what you wish for, because now you got Jacques Martin, and they're just not. If they lose tonight, what are they, 7 and they're playing what, 300 hockey?
They'll be 7-22.
Yeah, but across the stats, their scoring's dried up, their goaltending's awful, their points percentage. I mean, on any meaningful measure, they've just taken a step back here across
Yeah.
the board. So
Yeah. They'll be
anyway.
sorry, did I say 7? 14-22, not 7. Sorry. Um, I was thinking in their last 10, they've lost 7. But
But I
yeah,
don't know how do you get to this point, though. I was reading one columnist today who was saying, quotes Martin after the 3-1 Edmonton loss, and Martin, another dumb comment at a press conference. We have to build on this. What? You
yeah,
build on a 3-1 loss. I kind of know what he was saying, but
yeah. That's one of those games that if you are a winning team, you're fine with that loss. Like if Ottawa's not doing bad, you're okay with that loss. Ottawa played a pretty good game against Edmonton. Like that, yeah, I get what he means, but still, you don't want to build on a 3-1 loss. I get it. Um, to wrap things up here, I just have 2 quick questions for each of you. First of all, tell me your number one most improved player or surprising player. So, I mean, could be somebody acquired in the offseason. I don't think anybody acquired this offseason is going to be on your list for the most impressive player. But who's number one on your list? We'll start with you, Paul.
I'm gonna take Matthew Joseph, because we've seen a real renaissance in that guy. I know in the spring he was the guy everybody wanted to trade, and now they don't. He's exciting to watch out there. A lot of speed. He's back tonight, I guess, in Calgary, so I'll be interested to see how he bounces back.
Yeah.
But he's been injured for what, last 10 games, I think it is. But prior to that, he racked up 6 goals, 13 assists for 19 points over 25 games. And that's, he's already bettered what he did last year in 56 games. So
And most
good on.
impressively, he's a plus 12 this year.
Yes, he is. Yeah. One of in the top 10 in the league. Yeah.
Dayton, who do you got for number one impressive, surprising?
I mean, I don't think there's any other answer than Matthew Joseph.
Yeah,
He's
that's
on pace for
objectively
54
right.
points, which is, I think that's double.
Yeah.
Yes, that is double his career high.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. I'll throw in one more name, Jacob Bernard Docker. I mentioned him a little earlier. I think he's been doing really good this season for what he's been asked to do. Definitely not the biggest name or most impactful defenseman, but a solid depth defensive guy, which is exactly what he was asked to be. And I think that's great. That's what they need.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm gonna rush on these ones. We're almost out of time here. But most disappointing, Dayton.
Shabbat. Just
Really?
I
Okay.
think he's been short, not like almost abysmal this year. He's been injured, yeah, sure, but he's on pace for 37 points, no goals. I That's a guy that I want to be way better than he is. That should be a 50-point defenseman, and he's way short of that. He's been, I think, not as good as he could be, and that to me is the most disappointing.
Okay. Paul?
I'm taking Corpusalo. I called it when they signed him, but back then I remember thinking, what do I know? I still like to believe in unicorns, and better minds than mine must recognize something in them. There's got to be something there, and guess what? There's not. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
those are, I mean, I don't know if I agree with Shabbat being the most disappointing, but maybe by the standard that you expect from them, that makes a lot more sense. But I would have to go with Corpusalo as well. And I might even throw Mark Kastelik in there.
That was another guy I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I expected him to build off a good year last year, and he just hasn't. But yeah, that's going to wrap things up for today. A lot of really good conversation, maybe a lot of hot takes and a lot of things that might upset some people. But let us know in the comments your thoughts on kind of all of our topics.
Get in the comments.
Especially on who you think Ottawa should.
Let me really mix it up. The number one disappointment for me is Spartacat. He's been awful this year.
But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in this week. Make sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. We hope to see you next week, and take care.